The Honorable Council of the City of Evansville is hereby called to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Trockman?
Here.
Councilwoman Mosby?
Here.
Councilman Burton?
Here.
Councilwoman Koehler Lindsey?
Here.
Councilman Brinkmeyer?
Here.
Councilman Beane?
Here.
Councilwoman Moore?
Here.
Councilman Weaver?
Here.
Councilman Heronemus?
Here, there being 9 members present, 0 members absent, and 9 members representing a quorum, I hereby declare this session of the Common Council officially open. This evening, the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Councilman Burton. Before I ask everybody to join us in a moment of silence, I do want to acknowledge the tragedy that happened in Louisville today. Old National Bank is a long-standing, tremendous financial institution in our community. There's a lot of people here at home, although this did not happen in our community, that are mourning, and we can only hope that we don't see any more of this moving forward. That being said, please join us in a moment of silence. Fellow councilmen and those in the audience, welcome to the April 10th, 2023 meeting of the Common Council. We've got a long meeting tonight, and thankfully we have some air conditioning today, because I can tell you last Tuesday was pretty miserable as far as it's concerned. This evening, Josh Claiborne is the City Council Attorney. Is there a motion to approve the meeting memorandum of the March 20th, 2023 meeting of the Common Council as written?
Second.
Having a first from Councilwoman Mosby and a second from Councilman Beane. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So ordered.
Reports and communications. Emailed material ordinances G 2023-06, G 2023-06 amended, F 2023-04, F 2023-05, F 2023-06, and R 2023-13. Resolution C 2023-05, and on your desk this evening, extended agenda.
Is there a motion to acknowledge the reports and communications?
So moved. Second.
Having a first from Councilman Beane and a second from Councilman Burton. All those in favor say aye. Aye. So ordered.
Special orders of the day. There are no special orders this evening. Consent agenda. First reading of ordinances and resolutions. Ordinance G 2023-06 amended, and ordinance amending Chapter 3.35 Housing Funds of the Evansville Municipal Code. Ordinance F 2023-04, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Evansville approving the annual Community Development Plan and appropriating Community Development Block Grant, Emergency Solutions Grant, and Home Investment Partnership Program grant funds. Ordinance F 2023-05, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Evansville authorizing appropriations, transfer, reappropriations, repeals, and additional appropriation of funds within the Department of Metropolitan Development. Ordinance F 2023-06, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Evansville authorizing transfers of appropriations, additional appropriations, and repeal and reappropriation of funds for various city funds. Ordinance R 2023-13, an ordinance to rezone certain real estate in the City of Evansville, State of Indiana, more commonly known as 2607 through 2611 Stringtown Road.
Is there a motion to accept the amendment for ordinance G 2023-06?
Second.
Having a first from Councilman Brinkmeyer and a second from Councilman Burton. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So ordered. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda as written?
So moved.
Having a first from Councilman Weaver and a second from Councilwoman Koehler Lindsey. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So ordered.
Committee reports. There are no committee reports for today. Regular agenda, second reading of ordinances and resolutions. Ordinance G 2023-05, an ordinance regulating the use of Wesselman Park.
Is there a motion to adopt ordinance G 2023-05?
Second.
I have a first from Councilman Brinkmeyer and a second from Councilman Weaver. The floor is now open for discussion of this item among council. First, I do want to start off again by saying I appreciate everyone being here. We do appreciate your comments, but please, let's keep them respectful and professional. I know there are a lot of people that want to speak tonight, and we are going to allow the 3 minutes, but please, when the timer does go off, please wrap it up quickly so that we can allow everyone, well, here's what we've got, allow everyone to speak tonight. So I just want to start off by saying that this ordinance really was drafted and proposed because throughout the whole process and when we were voting on the bonds for the proposed pickleball courts, there were several questions from the floor, and we were misinformed that it was on a vote for the actual bond issue only, that other items would come up, later to be voted on. And so I think had that not been the case, some of us would have known that it was the location and everything else, that our votes might have been done differently. And also, upon going to neighborhood meetings, and then for the last several months of everyone showing up, our constituents in the city, saying that, they wanted more information, they feel like their voices hadn't been heard, then Councilman Weaver and I got together and tried to figure out what we could do to remedy this and make sure that City Council actually got to have a say, got to have a voice. And although I do respect everyone on the Evansville Parks Department, Parks Board, and Department as well, I don't feel that City Council has a voice on the Parks Board Commission, because it's basically appointees from the mayor, from the city of Evansville, and from our county commissioners. And they're basically handling city money. So with that being said, that's the reason that this ordinance G 2023-05 is coming before you today, because I feel that our constituents in the city of Evansville need their voices to be heard. Councilman Beane?
Yes. First of all, I'd like to say that the Parks Department is their own taxing entity, and everyone in the entire county is taxed for parks. So this isn't just city money that's contributing to this. This is the county as well. So the bond that was sold will be paid with some money from city people and some from county. So I want to make that clear. Secondly, I would request that we hear the public comments first, if we could, so that they have their chance to say things before we start talking and making our minds up how we want to vote. I'd like to hear from them, if that's okay with the other members of council.
I'm fine with that, as long as other council members
I would
agree.
agree to that as well.
Okay.
Do we need to make a motion then, Josh? No. Okay.
No.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
Okay, McKenzie May, M-A-Y. Once again, please state your name and address for the record when you come up to speak. Thank you.
Hey, McKenzie May. My address is 8155 North Large Place in Newburgh, Indiana. Members of the council, my name is McKenzie May. I am the Active Transportation Liaison for the Evansville Trails Coalition. And as stated on our website, you will see the words passion, advocacy, collaboration, community, and connectedness. In everything we do, through advocacy efforts, partnerships, activities, and programs, we work toward built environment improvements that support the movement of people of all ages and abilities. The connections of our wards, districts, and regional cities are important for those who run, bike, wheel, and use other form of recreation and active transportation safely for health, wellness, and alternative transportation as part of their daily routine. In correlation with statements from previously made by our Executive Director, Lori VanHook, on the Robert Parks Trail, this connection will provide a means for community members to be safe while moving from one place to another from routine and important destinations. Multi-use trails are inclusive, active transportation and recreation options that support active living and active transportation to our city wards, district, and regional cities. Active transportation facilities are particularly important in low-income and minority communities or communities with high percentages of new immigrants. People in those communities are less likely to own vehicles, and unsafe streets might pose a barrier to using active transportation. Please consider all the projects within this effort to improve our community park and new quality of life projects for connections that provide access to and for active transportation. We do not want Evansville to lose out on connectivity and active transportation ways. Thank you very much.
Lori VanHook.
Good evening, everyone. Lori VanHook, 1820 Mount Auburn Road, Evansville, Indiana. As McKenzie stated, I am the Evansville Trails Coalition Executive Director, and I'm here really to advocate for the connections within this parks plan and that really capitalize on our local projects that are in motion. And I just wanted to allude to what I mentioned at your committee meeting last week, that there are amenity trails that connect us from Walnut Street across the Ped Bridge from Walnut Phase 3, and that's going to give us the connection that we needed from downtown, the Promise Zone areas, the high rail trail that passes along Aiken Park and gives access to TP Park residents as well. But I did want to mention that this is a trail that will go through the boundary area. And so when we think of access to future rail-to-trail opportunities with Norfolk Southern Railway, our concern isn't for pickleball courts. Ours is for the whole thing and what it means. How will we come back to the drawing board and plan again? It took us 4 years to get to where we are right now. And I'm so thankful that we have the leadership and that you all are looking at quality of life improvements for our community members. But I also want you to consider the collaboration that's taking place, the planning that's taking place, the design, the amount of money and time and effort that we've all come together as a community to just get to where we are right now, and consider some of the things that will be lost, the turnaround time to plan a project. And with a trail like this, I don't know that we could turn around like new design plans and still qualify for next level trails. And there are so many, American Trails grants, DNR Land and Water Conservation Funds, Indiana Greenways Foundation. Those are the types of grants that we want to submit to, but we can't do that. We won't qualify. We don't have plans and designs that are prepared for submission. And so that's my concern, is just consider everything. And then the connections that we have. I mean, that Norfolk Southern opportunity, that's 13 miles from 8 miles in Vanderburgh County. That's going to give us access through Chandler and to Boonville. So we get really excited about downtown to Boonville, Indiana, and those opportunities to partner with regional cities. So I just want you to consider that. I thank everybody for being here and speaking on behalf of how they feel. I love it because we're all fighting for quality of life here. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
Kate Lyons.
Good evening. Kate Lyons, 23 Dreyer Boulevard, Evansville, Indiana. And I am speaking on behalf of EPOC this evening, or Evansville Pickleball Outdoor Courts Committee. EPOC has decided to have one statement for tonight's meeting. Out of respect for everyone's time and to avoid redundancy, we will present this statement in two parts. Now, others may speak on their own behalf in favor of this project. So firstly, we would like to thank the City Council for their interest in this project and for approving the bond for the master plan, which does include the pickleball project. We would also like to thank the Parks Board for their foresight and their diligence in bringing this project to this point. And a big thank you to Steve Schaefer for leading the way in these efforts. We feel like attention has been diverted from EPOC's mission, so we want to restate that for you. Evansville Pickleball Outdoor Courts is committed to provide a free, social, healthy, and family-friendly exercise activity for the entire public community, as well as to provide revenue opportunities for our business community and showcase the beautiful city of Evansville in building a state-of-the-art pickleball complex. Now with the mission stated, know that at least 95% of the time that these courts will be open and available to the public. It's the main objective of our project. The occasional tournaments that take place would be by far the exception, but nonetheless, these tournaments would provide revenue for maintenance and upkeep, so the courts would be self-sufficient. EPOC was not initially concerned with tournaments, but many potential sponsors were on board. It was the Parks Board and other entities that wanted to go bigger than our initial proposal, which brings us to where we are today. Local partnerships for this project include the YMCA, Evansville Tennis Center, Visit Evansville, Evansville Regional Sports Commission, 100% Pickled, Evansville Parks Board, and of course EPOC, as well as USA Pickleball. So I thank you, and part 2 is coming. So go pickleball.
Thank you. Michael Watkins.
My name is Michael Watkins. I live at 3323 Takara Drive. October of 2021, a Tuesday night before a Parks Board meeting, I had the great idea of pickleball courts. So I went to that meeting, and that was back in 21, and here we are today at this point here. My desire was to build a pickleball courts for older parents, for the family members, and for the kids. I'm not reading off script here now, but it has been a long journey, but it's a journey that we didn't have to go through. We as an EPOC club members don't want to destroy nature. That's never been in our idea. We have never wanted to have a pay-for-play courts. That, to me, is very restricting to people who are low incomes. The reason we picked Westmoreland Woods because of the location and the availability of what was available in the city for a central area. Westmoreland Woods is a regional park. It attracts many people. And this is in addition to that park that will attract more families, more grandparents, more children that don't make the sports team, who can't play on a pay-for-play sport like baseball and soccer and things like that. And I know that people that are objecting to it are not against pickleball. I understand that. But I've looked, EPOC has looked. There's no central place in the city of Evansville for a project like this to be placed. If you've been here, lived here long enough, you know the west side stays on the west side. East side stays on the east side. This can bring everybody together in one place and learn new friendships and have relationships. So that's why I'm suggesting Westmoreland Park. And I want to thank every one of you for enduring all our meetings that we've discussed this project. I know it's been hard on you just as it has been on us. And I hope it's settled one way or the other because I'm tired. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Yeager, or H-E-E-G-E-R.
Councilwoman.
Heger?
Let's hold, oh, I'm sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, Madam Chair,
I don't have a gavel.
if I was going to ask you,
I don't have a gavel, so.
I'm just going to say, I don't want to be the gavel guy tonight, out of respect for everybody. I know we're probably going to have a lot of folks love what people say and not like what people say, but if we can just have people do the comments and then kind of move forward there, just out of respect of everybody in the room, I greatly appreciate it, because I don't want to be the gavel guy tonight. Thank you.
So Steve Heger, H-E-E-G-E-R, and then next up will be Barbra Dye.
Steve Heger, 15340 Cemetery Road, Evansville. I'll just provide a few additional comments on the summary that I presented last week on pickleball noise levels. If the project does proceed with the Westmoreland site, there are real concerns with the noise levels that can be expected. In pickleball facilities in other cities, people in nearby areas have found the noise levels and the particular frequencies of the incessant loud pop of normal play, and in tournaments, even a rapid popping, of course. They found the level particularly objectionable, and they have resulted in numerous protests and lawsuits. Noise level measurements are not subjective, as would be, for example, judging the loss of the green space in the proposed site. Noise levels are a measurable quantitative parameter which can be judged against accepted standards. Based on published noise levels for the normal pickleball play and compensating for distance to the areas in the proximity of the proposed Westmont site, the predictions are that the noise levels will exceed recognized acceptable standards. The particular area of concern are the neighbors only 160 feet southwest of the present tennis courts. Not only do the predicted levels exceed the accepted EPA standards and those specified in the national ANSI standard, they are calculated to be twice as loud as the acceptable levels. The noise levels at the Good Samaritan Home and in Westmont around the proposed playing area would also exceed established allowable standards. Based on the protests and lawsuits in other cities, these predicted noise levels could present a significant risk and could potentially result in costly litigation. Based on the above, I strongly recommend that the noise issue be evaluated by a professional consultant to determine the potential risk for this project. I've also given copies of a more detailed noise analysis of this project, along with a Google Earth aerial view of the proposed site, to the Secretary. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbra Dye. And next up will be Brian Lewallan.
Barbra Dye, 3018 Washington Avenue. I happen to be in Ward 3, Mr. Heronemus. I'm one of your constituents. I am very concerned about this Mid-City Parks area that covers from Lincoln Avenue all the way to Morgan Avenue. This is a gem that most cities would just love to have in their proximity and be able to use it as their own. This area north of the Lloyd should be maintained as a nature park. We have lots of sporting areas. Let's put sporting things in sporting areas and leave this to nature. Some of my concerns at the Wesselman site has to do with water mitigation. Increased hard surfaces cause more runoff, which means runoff is either going to go into combined sewer that's there, or it's going to add to the flooding areas that we already have in Wesselman Park behind shelter number 1. When the people were talking about previous softball courts that were there, at that time, we did not have a nature preserve. It is now a nature preserve. And since that time, worldwide, we have lost a third of our songbirds. We have lost half of our insects. Part of it has to do with habitat loss. Part of the problem also has to do with light pollution. Having lights on late in the evening greatly contributes to the decline of bugs, moths, and beetles, which are driven to the light. They exhaust themselves, and they cannot reproduce. It also causes problems with bird migration. They have trouble figuring out where they're supposed to go. The noise pollution can interrupt nesting songbirds, raptors, and other animals in the area. It has been often and repeatedly proven that edges around nature preserves or forests are extremely important in protecting what is inside and the integrity of the nature area. Anytime you put another sporting or hard surface in there, you are cutting away at those edges and reducing them further. So every acre that goes to sports that has hard surface, whether it's parking or courts, does reduce that edge. People have said there is no nature here. There is nature here. In this field are crickets, grasshoppers, caterpillars, moths, butterflies, voles, shrews, skunks, possum, raccoon, fox, coyotes, bobcats, and sometimes deer. If someone stood at a beach and looked at the ocean for the first time, they would think there's nothing out there. They would miss a lot of whales and a lot of freighters by not taking time to look at what's actually there. And I'm sorry to seem so concerned, but over time, not necessarily you folks here, but over time, our city leaders have let us down so many times. We lost our connectivity to our main street. We have lost our L&N train depot that so many people loved. We definitely lost our beloved carousel. We've lost our amphitheater to neglect. So I appreciate your time and hope for the consideration.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Please, no applause. Brian Lewallan, L-E-W-A-L. Okay. And next up will be Niles Rosenquist.
Brian Lewallan, 726 South Willow. This is my third engagement coming to City Council, so thank you for allowing me to wear my new shoes today and attend. So I am not an EPOC board member. I'm just a pickleball player. I've been here in Evansville now on and off since 2013, since graduation. Studied Spanish and business. Yo también puedo hablar español. Entonces voy a empezar con esto, con Fiesta Evansville. Los sonidos de esta fiesta tan fabulosa con la comunidad latina es tan importante. Pero we're not talking about noise just about pickleball. What other noises take place in this park? Abraham Brown, which I'm sure you all know who is also a friend of mine. I Facebooked him up, said, what was the attendance to your awesome event, which I have attended for 3 years now in a row as a personal fan of the Latino community and also as a vendor. And he said 3,800, and I could hear him say 3,800, Brian. And I started thinking, all right, 3,800 people came into Westman Park on a Sunday in October. Where did all these people come from? Where did they park? Where did they go? That's a lot of people. It's a lot of cars. If we put four people in a car, that's a lot of cars. That came in one day. And if Evansville is to host a pickleball tournament that is for a couple days, maybe twice a year, you may not have 900 cars that come to the park over that course that weekend, but you're going to have a decent amount. And if Fiesta Evansville can host an event that big, surely the city and EPOC and the Parks Department can come up with a safe plan to host these cars. So that's one thing. And also the noise. If destruction to nature, that event is so loud, and I love it. And I think that Henderson can recite in Spanish the songs quite clearly from this event. So those two things I think are important to think about, that while that is one day, it is extremely enormous in size and proportion. And also I know that I'm a little bit younger than most people. Everyone else was working today as hard, paying into Medicare taxes. Let's keep it at 165 rounded up. But there are a lot of people that are, I'm for keeping it at 165 for the record, but there are a lot of young people that play pickleball that this is just a taxing thing. It's nervous too, to speak in front of you and the community, but I was passionate enough to get off the house, to leave my 3.5-year-old and my wife after a long day to be here to talk, to let you know there are youth that want to play pickleball, and I value nature. I was in a fraternity. We helped with Keep Evansville Beautiful when that kind of started, and I think it's important to preserve nature, so we're for that too. But keeping youth healthy, obesity, I mean, you're looking at me here about 225. I'd probably be 235, 240 without pickleball. So that's another example of some of the great benefits. But I wanted to keep this light, positive, and uplifting. Thank you for your time, and I hope that you support the growth of pickleball in a centralized location at Westman Park. Thank you.
Thank you. Niles Rosenquist.
Niles Rosenquist, 732 South Willow, his next door neighbor. Thank you again for your time. I'm going to comment specifically on the pickleball budget discussions at the recent council meeting and the committee meeting. Almost 60 days ago, the bids were open for the pickleball project, and it was immediately obvious that the project was way over budget, about twice the $1.5 billion of the bond issue. Now, last week, just before this deadline, the Parks Department has responded. To quote them, this all comes from the video, just before this deadline, everything is coming in higher. but they still expect to be able to find savings in other projects. They are hoping that there's some savings, and they're trying to find sources of funding to backfill other projects. Questions. Some projects are coming in under budget. How much? Which projects? Are there other important projects that have or could also come in over budget that will also need these savings? Just last week, the demolition of Lloyd Pool came in over budget. One project does not need to be done. Which one and why? How much savings? How many projects do not yet have bids, so costs are unknown? The two bonds list 24 projects with about $10 million available. Savings on under-budget projects will likely not be sufficient according to the Parks Department. So specifically, some of the funding for Roberts Park may be taken for pickleball. Roberts Park, of course, is the green space that we've been told is the replacement for the green space to be destroyed in Wesselman. Private fundraising is planned to backfill other projects. Which projects will be left out of the public funding requiring this hopeful backfilling? The City Council approved specifically $1.5 million for pickleball. Did City Council intend to give the Parks Department the authority to just move money around like this, spending it on a preferred project without any kind of review? Is the Parks Board prepared to accept a bid based on the $1.5 million budget, or will they accept a bid for the entire project based on hoping for savings and other funds that may be available? Unfortunately, a lot of details here at the last minute that could have been addressed much earlier if this overrun on the budget had been recognized earlier. Now we're watching the Parks Department scramble around at the last minute, putting together the funding for pickleball with insufficient understanding of the impact on all the other 23 projects in the bonds. Thank you again for spending your time on our concerns.
Thank you. Collett
Madam
Lorraine?
Chair, I've got to address something. Whomever has the very clever sign back there, we have a pretty strict no sign policy, so if you wouldn't mind to just set it down. It is very clever, though. I see it.
Thank you, I didn't see it. So.
My name is Collett Lorraine. I live at 708 South Norman. I'm in Ward 3, and I am really proud to see people passionate about this park. So it's really nice to know that people actually care about Westman's Park. I visit the park 3 to 5 times a week. I've been there more often thinking that we may lose it, so I've been over there even more recently, posting pictures of what I see over there. For instance, as a lady said earlier, if you don't go there and visit, you may not see the bluebirds that have been flying over the fields. They're an edge species. They don't like the thick forest of 200 acres. They like the forest to build their home, but they come into these grasslands to find bugs and beetles, and then they fly up to the trees for protection and build their homes. There are 169 known species that have been sighted at Westman's Park in the last 20 years. You can find this information on eBird. 169 species is pretty relevant, because if you go to the state hospital, which is only maybe within a mile of the park, there have only been 95 such species listed over the last 20 years. So this is what we're talking about, the importance and the gem that Westman's Park is. There are better places to build pickleball courts. I have nothing against these people or people who play. My dad lives at the nursing home. He can't move. He's been there 7 years. On the odd occasion, he gets out in the courtyard there. I don't think he wants to hear this when he goes sits outside. I don't know if anybody's driven behind Washington Square Mall. There's about 10 acres of pavement there. I mean, this is just a thrown-out idea, but it's just barren pavement. It seems like pickleball courts could just be thrown up there a lot easier than changing a green space. So I think a lot of the people are not organized. The people I see at the park, they're just there for a quiet walk. I see mothers with their children in their strollers. I see a lot of people washing their cars, doing whatever. They're not here tonight because they don't know about this. I think that pickleball is really going to disrupt the animals and the people who go there for a little peace and quiet. If the humans are already complaining about a pickleball court that's not there yet, can you imagine once it is built how much more people are going to realize the impact of this court? Please, 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 just find another place for it. That's all I'm asking. Find a better place. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Daugherty. And then next up after Michael will be Alicia Hodgkins.
Michael Daugherty, 953 Pfeiffer Road, Evansville, Ward 5. I just want to speak. I'm an avid pickleball player. I love the sport. I think the location is improper. As the lady said before, you're adding impervious material into a nature preserve. That water runoff's got to go somewhere. You have all of these other locations that can be facilitated for a great sport and to bring people in. Getting our youth active in pickleball is a great thing, and it makes all of our community healthier. But again, I don't want to speak to the nature of the wildlife that is there and adding to the further discharge of rainwater and water runoff and what that will do to the watershed in that area. So I'm just here to say that I love pickleball, but the location is improper. Thank you.
Thank you. Alicia?
Alicia Hijeney, 2893 Washington. And I want to say I'm certainly not against pickleball. I think anything that gets people off the couch or the lazy boy is a good thing. My sister lives in Florida and plays a lot. However, I do oppose putting it in Wesselman Park. When I was a runner, I spent a lot of time running through there, and I think the birds, the nature, and the old growth trees, I mean, that's something that we're the only place in a city that has that. I just think there has to be somewhere else that we could put the pickleball courts. And I admit it's on me. I came to this fight late, but I didn't realize really what was going on, what was about to happen. And I just, I truly hope, you know, the ordinance passes and Missy does her bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Jean Webb?
Hello, my name's Jean Webb. I'm at 201 Montclair Court, and that is in Ward 1. So, yeah. And I'm here to ask you to please represent your constituents and vote for this ordinance. Now, a little background. I have spent 30 years working in the pharmaceutical manufacturing industry, which is a heavily regulated industry. And so every role I had over those years, I was looking for compliance. Was what I was doing was matching the rules and the procedures and the methods? And if not, did I have a good rationale in getting sign-offs on it? And so it's natural that when I looked at this problem that we have of our voice not being heard, I looked at the master plans. We have the current master plan that was issued in 2015, and we have the new draft one. And I looked at those for compliance with the Department of Natural Resources guideline in creating those master plans. And you will see that the purpose of those master plans is to ensure the constituents are being listened to. So you listen to us. That master plan means they're trying to get the Parks Department to listen to the public also. And the way they do that is they have something called a needs analysis, and that's a component of that report. And if you look at the needs analysis of the 2015 report, it doesn't even mention pickleball. Now, it does mention it in this draft one, but not by itself. It doesn't have pickleball. It's lumped in with tennis, so we really don't even know what pickleball is by itself. But if you look at the ranking of the question surveyed for this current plan, it says, what new asset would you like added? And I believe top was open bathrooms, and that was followed by lighting, and I think trails were then. The combined pickleball tennis, only 18% of respondents wanted that, the combined. Whereas passive green space, 33% of respondents wanted passive green space. So we have a master plan by the guidelines of the Department of Natural Resources. It's saying, it does not say that we should be building pickleball. So I'm asking why. So please hold this up and make sure the constituents' voice is heard. Thank you. And I didn't know, was that the, no, it wasn't.
It's not.
Okay. I believe that gets it. We're out of compliance with that plan. And it also concerns me that when they are reviewing that draft master plan, if they compare it against the guidelines, they're also going to see through our non-compliance. And it may jeopardize the trails when that master plan is rejected. Thank you.
Thank you. And could I please ask that you silence your cell phones so that we don't have any other beepers going off, because people are getting confused if that's their time limit or not. Annalise Odine. And next up will be Brian, Puyinter.
Ann Leslie Odine, 4588 Moray Drive, Evansville, and I'm in your District 3. Hi. Okay. This is what I know. I know one of the definitions of a field is a green meadow, and one of the definitions of a meadow is a field. These two words are interchangeable. I know the initial request for 10 pickleball courts in Iglehart ballooned in 6 months to 24 courts in Wesselman Park without the knowledge of the greater community. I know to this day the city has never posted public notices at the Wesselman Meadow, the Robbins Field, alerting citizens of plans to build a pickleball complex at the site. I know Zac Garcia states Wesselman Woods is neutral on the pickleball complex in Wesselman Park, but both Mayor Winnicky and Deputy Mayor Steve Schaefer have publicly said he supports the project. The leadership of the Wesselman Woods Nature Preserve has betrayed its mission to protect the woods by not speaking up in defense of the buffering function to the preserve that the Wesselman Meadow, the Robbins Field, provides. I know money already spent by the Parks Board on the pickleball complex is approximately $180,000, which is 12% of $1.5 million and 5.4% of $3.5 million. Continuing to spend money on an inappropriate location is fiscally irresponsible. It is prudent to cut our losses and to conduct a responsible search for a more appropriate size and a more appropriate site. To my knowledge, there is no member with environmental expertise on the Parks Board of Commissioners, and therefore the board has no understanding of the destruction it will cause the environment with this project. I know the Indiana Wetlands Task Force final report came out November 2022. It states that isolated wetlands are important to protect since 85% of Indiana's wetlands are gone. It is easier to protect a wetland than to create one to compensate for its destruction. Under its findings and recommendations, Wesselman Meadow, the Robbins Field, is currently providing the Class 1 isolated wetland function of flood mitigation for its surrounding area. This area is already at its capacity to absorb rainfall events, which quite possibly will increase with climate change. Though not designated as such at this time, Wesselman Meadow, the Robbins Field, further qualifies itself because of its place in the landscape. It is bordered on 3 sides by forest wetlands. Unless mitigated, paving this 3-acre parcel will cause more flooding in Wesselman Park. I know ordinance G 2023-05 is not overstepping the bounds of city council's jurisdiction because it is specifically protecting Wesselman Meadow, the Robbins Field, from a parks board that has failed to do its due diligence to consider the many concerns raised by the community
Thank you.
when citing the pickleball complex in Wesselman Park without a thorough investigation of more appropriate sites.
Thank you. Your time
I
is
know
up.
you can protect Wesselman Meadow,
Ma'am,
protect the
your
Robbins
time's
Field.
done. Thank you.
By passing this. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I apologize, I'm butchering names. I don't have my glasses. Brian? Okay.
I'm Brian Puyter at 1634 Village Lane, 47725. I was the executive director and general manager of the Evansville Community Tennis Association, which oversees Evansville Tennis Center. And we are the Evansville area tennis patrons, which has been around for 40 years with kids. And we've had over 400 kids participate in leagues at Wesselman in the tennis facility every year for 40 years. We also run a pro tournament that's now $60K that you may not know. We've probably brought over $2 million to the beds and heads of Evansville with that one tournament. We also run national tournaments there. So we've been doing it, and we have indoor backup. And then with the EPOC, we would have indoor backup for events as well. We would work with them. And I think it's very important to think about how many kids' lives you can touch. People our age, I've played senior pro all over the country, and I've seen, in Florida, you got places with the Everglades down there, and you have 50 pickleball courts nestled in there. You have facilities in North Tampa that have padel, pickleball, and tennis. Padel's is allowed as pickleball. And they all kind of enjoy in the nature. They have nature. The parks are incredible. There's a lot of walking trails. There's a lot of lakes, alligators. But, my point is there's a lot of nature there. And I've seen it in Arizona. And so I just think it's the need that the community needs here in Evansville. And we can be able to attract things. And the beauty of having it at Wesselman is with our building, that'll help them with tournaments and events, because we have the building that we built there. And then we've also, you can tape off and utilize the tennis courts, so if you have more overflow for practice courts, et cetera. So by working together, it would really help that community, them to be able to run better tournaments. And again, I just think it's something that we need. So thank you.
Thank you. Larry T.A. Thorbeck.
Larry Thorbeck, 2410 East Columbia. You've heard me speak before, Parks Department. Parks Board has heard me talk. So I am a neighbor. I'm approximately 550 feet away from where the pickleball courts are going to be at. My neighbor at the end of the block is 150 feet away from where the courts are going to be at. Currently, at this time, the lights are being kept on for hours and hours, and nobody there is playing. Okay? That's a concern. It reflects on our backyards as neighbors. It reflects on the side of my house. Secondly, I'm also speaking for the neighbors that are on the north side of the railroad tracks. They have the light situation. They will have the noise also. Thirdly, has there been a study on the drainage? There's been no study on the drainage. I've lived here for 42 years, and so just south of the entrance to where the tennis courts are, there is a line of trees, and of course it's not classified as old growth trees, okay? And so that would be between where the old batting cages and the volleyball courts are at, and the entrance to the tennis courts. What would happen to the drainage there? What would happen to the drainage once you put the pickleball courts in? Where is that drainage going to go? Is it going to go down to the Norfolk Southern Railroad tracks, or is that going to tie into the storm system that runs along the right in front of my house that shoots down Bakey Avenue down to Harkey Pool, where it pools up, and that drain is never cleaned out and it lays in water? And if you look at the studies, and like I said, I've lived here for 42 years. So if you go through the golf course, it is actually going uphill. It cannot drain going down. It's going up, so it has to come back the other way. So, and as far as having tournaments and having kids playing and learning how to play pickleball and sports and stuff like that, you can do the same thing if you do that at Roberts Park, where you have plenty of parking. You already have an entranceway where the concrete, I'm pretty sure it's like 8 inches thick. The entranceway would save you a lot of money, and it would be highly visible to all kinds of people. And so I'm just asking that you would consider all those things that I've talked about. And once again, I appreciate your diligence, your hard work, and the Parks Board, and I appreciate you listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan Blankenship. And then after that will be Amy, W-I-I-S-T.
Susan Blankenship, 1108 South Lincoln Park Drive. I'm in Ward 2, and I support G 2023-05, and I would appreciate your vote for this ordinance to represent the voice of your constituents. In its April 4th presentation, the Parks Department showed no evidence that pickleball courts need to be located at Wesselman Park. I know that as a former professor of public administration and a former state and local bureaucrat, that one of the most critical guides for unelected officials in making decisions is transparency. The process by which Wesselman Park was chosen as the location for the pickleball project is cloaked in secrecy. The National Parks and Recreation Association's Commission for Accreditation of Parks and Recreation Agencies, National Accreditation Standards, has as one of its requirements for accreditation, feasibility studies shall be conducted to determine the feasibility of proposed facilities, to include market studies, cost-benefit analysis, transportation, environmental, and economic analysis. Whatever the voting results on this ordinance, I am hoping that the elected officials of the city of Evansville will demand more from the unelected officials than what is currently being proposed in this project. We deserve to know why the site was chosen, how it was chosen. I still have received no response to my Access to Public Records Act request of November 28th of 2022 regarding meetings leading to the pickleball location. And I don't expect I will ever receive a response. That speaks poorly of the Parks Department as unelected officials. And I guess that's it. I hope that you will support this ordinance.
Thank you.
My name is Amy Weast. It's we, like the Wii game. And I live at 7015 Darmstadt Road. Every time I come to a meeting, and I've been to several, both Parks Board and Council meeting, I end up with more questions than answers. But due to time, I want to focus on the cost. That greatly concerns me. The pickleball courts, when voted on by the Parks Board, was $1.5 million. Now, but that's for 24 courts. Now they state it will cost $2.1 million for 16 courts. This puts into jeopardy the other parks projects, such as repairs and maintenance of current parks, which all council members and park board members agree need to be dealt with. These repair and maintenance should be the first priority of the Parks Board and council members, maintaining what the current but currently the city owns. One of the many arguments the Parks Board members is that if we wait, it will cost more money. Therefore, we should spend the money now. That argument is not fiscally responsible. The responsible action would be to take care of existing parks. This is what the council and park board members should be concerned with, keeping the parks in your district in good working order for all the city to enjoy. So I implore the city council members to vote yes for the ordinance and look to repair and maintain the current 67 parks that we have before we build yet again something new. One of my questions, since I have time, one of my questions is that I don't understand. So I'm hoping that someone can fill me in. What does the pickleball courts have to do with the trails? Could they be built without the pickleball courts? It was my understanding from what the lady presented was that the trails was conducted 4 years, which would be 2019, and the pickleball courts were added in 2021. So to me, that doesn't make sense. If the trails were already done in 2019, pickleball courts in 2021. So I don't know how the pickleball courts, not having them built in Wesselman's, could jeopardize the trails. The other thing is that I'm very concerned with, because I live by Eigelhart Park, is the Lloyd Pool. And that has been put off for 2 years. We were promised that it was going to be demolished when the new pool was built. And yet there it stands 2 years later. And I'm worried that it'll be pushed down the road again because money is being put towards pickleball courts. Thank you.
Thank you. Silvia Niemeyer.
Silvia Niemeyer, 516 North Bakey Road. I am in Ward 3, and please pass this ordinance. I've talked to you multiple times about, as a property owner, I have 3 science degrees of how much it's going to bother the wildlife, and I've talked to you about other things that I don't want pickleball in Wesselman Park. And I just had some thoughts I wanted to throw out there. The Wabash and Erie Canal is measured 469 miles long from Toledo, Ohio to Evansville. This is a historical canal that runs through Wesselman Park near the meadow. Construction on the canal started back in February 22 in 1832. Then 21 years later, the canal was finished in Evansville. There were 18 major aqueducts on the canal, hundreds of bridges, and 73 sets of locks. Only 2 boats made the trip from Toledo to Evansville. I bring this up about the canal because it's in the park and it is of historical significance, and I feel like it will have I feel like the pickleball courts will have a negative impact on the canal. Another thing I wanted to bring up was when I was on the Robert Stadium Parks Board, someone made the joke that it will look like Central Park in New York. Well, my family is from New York, and this does not look like anything in Central Park. For the 5-year plan for Roberts Park, it has been connected for over 60 years. I rode my bike from Stockwell Woods over the overpass, over Division, to go feed the ducks at the state hospital. So this is nothing new. So you are putting a bunch of money in something that has existed for years. You're just sort of updating it. And the other thing, how can you say it costs a lot of money is invested in these courts and they're too expensive to move? Nothing is built yet. I watched a surveyor, took him about 2 hours to do surveying of the land, and that was it. Then I watched Mr. Hafer come out and take some pictures of the meadow on his cell phone. I don't think that's going to cost too much. The 5-year plan brings a lot of the baseball, basketball, and volleyball all closer to the property owners on Bakey Road. If you don't live on Bakey Road, you don't know what's going on. Baseballs have hit my house. Baseballs hit the cars. They put up a net there thinking the net's going to stop the baseballs coming over. Well, the net, it rots over a couple of months. It's not replaced. So this great plan of yours is moving all the stuff closer, and there's going to be more problems.
Thank you.
Okay.
Eager Lawson?
Hello, I'm Eager Lawson. I live at 1300 Fountain Avenue here in Evansville. I am here because I support having more public oversight over the Parks Department. I don't think it should just be beholden to business interests or lobbyist groups, but the city as a whole. I don't think it's ethical or appropriate for an interim unelected parks director to be forcing through a project that will have such a lasting impact on future generations. And the ecological footprint of our largest natural area. I don't think our most used public green space should be paved over and used exclusively for pickleball. There are other areas, even in the adjoining former Roberts Park Stadium site, that would be more appropriate for pickleball development. That would have less impact on the current park users, on the environment, on wildlife, on rainwater retention, on neighbors, and would provide an area for future pickleball expansion without paving over our state's largest urban old-growth forests. We want more recreational activities, not less. Think of the picnickers, the frisbee players, the walkers, the birders, the football players, the medieval cosplayers, the bikers, and the future generations. And please don't make the mistake of putting profiteering over preserving our irreplaceable park and screwing over future generations in the process. As a pickleball and tennis player, I support pickleball. And as someone who bikes as my primary transportation, I support more trails, but not at the expense of our very limited, heavily used greensward. Thank you.
Thank you. Was there anybody else that wanted to speak? Yes. Yes.
Thanks, members of council. Steve Schaefer, deputy mayor and interim parks director. I can say I gave a long presentation and I won't go over a lot of that tonight. I will just try to address some points that were made today and also speak from the heart a little bit. It's a little demoralizing to come to work and you have a lot of positive, optimistic conversations with staff, and you see changes after some turmoil and good things happen, and you think you have plans that you want to move forward, not just for one park, not just one project in pickleball, but you have projects recommended for numerous parks throughout the community, and then you run into a brick wall like we do right now. And I get it. We're all passionate about Wesselman Park. We're all passionate about Wesselman Woods. However, the negativity and the misinformation and the accusations are what drive people out of government. And let's be honest. I mean, it is ridiculous. I mean, some of the comments that have been made, that there's profiteering, that there's money to be made, that this is all a conspiracy. I mean, I'm not running for mayor. I'm not even looking to stay in city government. I'm getting out. I'm still going to be impactful as a citizen. I'm going to find ways to be involved and make change in our community. But, I just hope everybody just takes a second and realizes this is pickleball. Pickleball. My son, my 13-year-old son, really wanted to come tonight. And he was like, why can't I come and speak? I said, well, number one, you'll be targeted. There'll be comments made. People will laugh and snicker and point their finger. And I don't want you exposed to that. And the majority of the public out there doesn't want to be part of the craziness that goes on social media and all that stuff. So let's just put it in perspective. We're all trying to make improvements. No one wants to destroy and pave over Wesselman Park. Just a comment, just a few comments. And, there's snickering in the background. I don't care anymore. There was a statement at the beginning of council that you were misinformed. And I get it. There was some confusion. But at our committee hearing, I think we got over that. And let's just stop using that terminology. We've always been talking about this location. And I get it. You want more input, you deserve it, you're elected officials, and that's what you're doing today. So I applaud you. Regarding the nature preserve, it was designated in 1982. Just put that on the record. I believe that softball fields were there into the late 90s. But regardless, those trees have been there for centuries. Statements such as, I visit the park more now because we may lose it. It's going to impact different species. I encourage everyone to talk to the professionals at Wesselman Woods, and talk to them about their, this very topic. I know out in C.K. Newsom, that's next to just a huge pavement parking lot, there are blue jays in our front grass area. I mean, so wildlife adapts. There's a statement that was made about master plans, they're to ensure that they're listening to the constituents and that we're out of compliance with the 2015 master plan. Okay, master plans are not there to ensure that we're in compliance. They're guiding documents for communities. DNR simply wants to approve them because they want to help make you eligible for funding. So, they're not a compliance agency. Just a couple more things. There was the speaker that said that both the mayor and the deputy mayor have said that Zac Garcia and Wesselman Woods are supportive. I've not said supportive. We've been working with them throughout this entire process. Zac Garcia and Wesselman Woods, they are neutral. And what the speaker did not repeat, did not go into the rest of his email. Number one, Wesselman Woods is neutral. Number two, from the National Wetlands Inventory, the proposed lawn for pickleball area is not classified as a wetland. Let me go on to what he was saying. One of the most effective ways to reduce the costs incurred by developers and builders while complying with the state's wetland protection regulations is to avoid and/or minimize those impacts to isolated wetlands that require mitigation. No wetland in Wesselman Woods proper is being destroyed. Again, wildlife corridors are interesting in urban environments. We have to remember that Wesselman Woods is the largest urban old-growth forest. We are fortunate to have it in the city. Our research through Wesselman Woods Wildlife Watch, we observe where wildlife is coming in. Interestingly enough, many animals find ways across the ditches and roads, mostly from the north, south, and east. The west is too suburban. I mean, there's more and more that the professional staff has responded and tried to address, but you're not hearing that. I mean, it's continual. There's other things. Process has been cloaked in secrecy. That one really is irritating. I mean, it hasn't been cloaked in secrecy. We've been talking about this since October of 21. There have been 24 Parks Board meetings where this has been discussed. 10 city council meetings. I mean, it's been reported in the media 56 times. I mean, transparency, it is what it is. Pickleball courts costs put other projects in jeopardy. We've explained that it won't. We're trying to adapt and finding savings.
Steve, can you hold on one second?
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I think we have something going on in the audience, and I just want to remind everybody that whether you agree or disagree with what's being said, Steve and other people in this room have sat and listened to whatever was said whether or not they agreed or disagreed. And it's all about being respectful of everybody. Sorry, Steve.
Nope. I apologize. I'm going way over. I understand. But, you know, after the year I've had, I think I deserve it. What do pickleball courts have to do with trails? Well, so here's the deal. In the box, in the yellow box, there are, that's where the major, the next level trails application, the major trail goes directly through that area. So that's how it relates to this ordinance. The ordinance, the trail runs right through the box of where the designated area of the ordinance. You know, Lloyd Pool demo being pushed, we simply didn't have the funding. We have the funding now. We put out bids. I mean, these projects, our staff is doing as the best that they can to address as many problems that occur. And I appreciate the help of the council in adding the additional maintenance crew and getting ready for this summer, and all of your partnership on various neighborhood parks, because partnerships going forward, what we're trying to do is set up the Parks Department in a position where we have partnerships with all of you and the neighborhood associations so that we can make the positive improvements. And then lastly, more oversight of the Parks Department. You know, it's not ethical for temporary interim director to shove this down people's throats at the last minute. You know, I've been deputy mayor since the beginning of the Winnicky administration, so, you know, it's not my first time, you know, advocating for a project. We have oversight, we have the Parks Board, we have the City Council, we have the mayor. You know, there is oversight and plenty of an opportunity for comment. No one is profiteering from this. I think there's a misconception that people are making money off of this. That is the farthest thing from the truth. There are a lot of organizations that are willing to step up and be part of programming, and that's simply all we want to do is create more recreational opportunity for our citizens while also having the opportunity to create some economic impact in the area. And I'm excited about Wesselman Park and Wesselman Woods. The overall plan is exciting. We should all have tremendous optimism for the future. We're going to do what we can to set it up for success, and hopefully all of you and future leaders will continue to invest and try to make improvements in that area, because it is a gem, both Wesselman Woods and Wesselman Park. So greatly appreciate the time, and if there's any questions on the project, I'll be more than willing to answer those. So, any questions?
Any question, council members, for? Yes, Councilman Weaver.
So I'm still confused. What's the goal of this project? And where's the extra $2+ million going to come from?
The goal of the project?
Yeah. So we talked about Tuesday. Is this for recreation? Do we want to have medium-sized tournaments? Do we want to host national tournaments? Should we put a task force together like we did for the Aquatic Center and build a awesome facility? So these are the questions I have.
Sure. The goal of the project is to offer recreational opportunities for local free play, camps, tournaments, local play, and then have the ability to have some small to medium-sized tournaments. We're not going to compete with the national tournaments that are held out west at the massive facilities. With 16 courts and then the overflow of the tennis, you know, we could potentially have, you know, a few tournaments a year. So, I mean, that's really the goal. We have no business in, you know, being in the mega tournament, the national tournament business, simply because of weather and location. So
are those tennis courts right now, I know the Tennis Association wants to manage, which I get the point why you guys want to put it there. Are those courts open right now to the public, or do you have to be a member? So
no, they're free, yes.
So they're open, right? Somebody can go out there right now and go play?
I believe so. I know that the tennis. Brian with the.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that earlier, but I didn't want to. Yeah, sure, that'd be great, if that's all right with you.
We offer it for free.
If you don't mind coming up to the microphone, please, so others can hear. Thank you.
Yeah, we've actually spent about $1.5 million to upgrade the facility over there. We have 500 adult league players in the community that play on a regular basis, but we always keep a couple courts open for the public. They're open the day. The schools use it, USI's used it. The university, we've hosted it. When Evansville had a team, we hosted the conference tournament. We also now hosted the Ohio Valley the last 2 years, where USI just joined. So we've done a lot of different things with the community to bring people in, but they're free. They're always open. Sometimes open too much, because I've had to, like, I got a $7,000 bill. It's going to hit me to prepare my center court for the pro tournament, because I get skateboarders that get on there and ruin them. So if we could have some police oversight, I'd like that.
If you can, sir.
Brian.
Sir, yeah, Brian, can you state your name just for the record?
Oh, yeah, it's Brian Puyter.
And then I've got one question, because it was brought up about would the lights be staying on later on in the evening, be there for free play or any other trainings that may be going on?
It's a push button, so anybody a skateboarder could push them on and go on, but they go off at 11. I think we have them on a timer.
Mm-hmm.
So, we can move that down to 10. Our leagues are usually done by 9 or 9:30. And I think the park technically closes, right, by 11? Okay, but somebody can go there and punch them on.
Push a button.
Does that make
Okay.
sense? They're open all the time.
Understandable.
Lights and everything.
Okay.
Any other
Nope.
questions? Okay.
Just need to answer that question. Thank you.
Any other questions for Steve Schaefer? Any other questions or comments from council members?
Yeah, I've got several comments. It is evident that Wesselman Park, the nature preserve, what potentially is going to be Roberts Park is not just today, but historically been a very, a spot ingrained in passion. And I understand that immensely for a few reasons. One, for those of you who aren't aware, I do represent the 3rd Ward. I do and have lived for the past 14 years within proximity, meaning just right across Lloyd Expressway in the 500 block of South Villa. I've said this to some of you in the audience when we have met privately. I've said it when I spoke to you on the phone. I want to see this area thrive. I want to see Roberts Park develop. That's why for 2 years in a row, I've debated with my colleagues on council to keep money in there for development of the project, because and many of you have heard before, my son is 11 years old. He's a Valentine's Day baby, so he's just a couple months away from first turning 11. Roberts Park has been discussed in this community, and oftentimes the project has stalled, and when it's stalled, we had softball fields that were considered, and we continue to see a field that's inactive, that is not beneficial to the residents of the 3rd Ward, the residents of the Wesselman Neighborhood Association, the residents of Midtown Neighborhood, and all the outlying neighborhoods right there in the area. It's also not benefiting the city of Evansville. And when we think about the future of Evansville, we want to ensure that quality of place is top of the line, top of mind, high priority, because that's how cities like Evansville and the Midwest are going to compete. When businesses are looking to expand, there's 2 things that they're really looking for. That's quality of place and a workforce that has talents. And I can tell you, we've got talents, and we've got a lot of work to do with quality of place. Trails are a significant part of that. And, as was my concern for tabling this, us overlaying this particular spot has potential to jeopardize, as you've heard, 4 years worth of work and a significant improvement to our community. Now, I share the exact same passion for this area. I just don't tend to share the same opinions. And I will let everybody in this room know that I've read every single email that you've sent. I've listened to every single voicemail that you've left for me. And if requested, I have done my best to respond back to you. What I think we have here, especially when you take into context the plan for Roberts Park, which, as the new master plan suggests, will actually rename Wesselman Park in its entirety. We've got a beautiful plan here, and we have spots of activation, which this pickleball court could be one of those. We have reinvestment that's planned, and while it's not going to come as quickly as I would like or any of us would like, not just here in this room tonight, but out in the community. It's a fair plan. It's a fair plan altogether, and I assure you that not only did I listen to your emails or read your emails, listen to your voicemails, but I did my own due diligence as well. There's a lot of concerns about the noise that pickleball makes, and how is that going to impact nature, and how is that going to impact the neighbors, and how is that going to, fold into the ecosystem of Wesselman Park. And I can tell you, in the 14 years I've lived in 521 South Villa Drive, I have experienced just as much nature there as I have the times that I've been in the park by myself. I see the bluebirds. I see the owls in my neighborhood. Matter of fact, one of them scared the holy bejesus out of me in 2010, and I will never forget it because it came out of my Bradford pear that a couple months later on my birthday fell on my house. Don't plant a Bradford pear. They're terrible trees, right? But I've seen coyotes in my neighborhood on Walnut where the Phase 3 development is happening right now. I have rabbits. I don't see salamanders because I don't think they make it nearly that far. And if you've ever seen Frogger, probably the Lloyd is not the best place for them to try and traverse. But what I will say is the combination of this project, Roberts Park, the connectivity that happened a few years ago, Wesselman Nature Preserve as it is and as it will expand with the additional 24 acres of reforesting, the State Hospital Park, and everything in there is going to be a jewel. It's already a jewel now. It's just going to be a highly polished jewel. And despite the debate and the many, many months of what we have heard from everybody, there's still, in my mind, there's still concerns about, do we have the authority to carry this out? I know there's disagreement on council with respect to our authority and oversight. As Councilor Beane had said, the park's jurisdiction extends beyond the city of Evansville. Whether or not, we think that matters or not. Wesselman Park is not just for me and my family, not just for the neighbors there, but everybody in the county of Vanderburgh County and everybody in the region. And a project like this, I also believe, will bring people to that jewel, bring people to hopefully, pour into Wesselman Park, not just with their feet, but with hopefully their funds to ensure the viability of the nature preserve moving forward. I know this is not going to be a popular decision, especially with people in my ward. I hope that you can respect that I will be not supporting this particular ordinance And I will continue with my support for the bond that I voted in favor of, knowing the pickleball courts were going to be where they were.
Yes, Councilman Beane.
I just have a couple of things. First, I want to thank Steve for coming in an extra day after the State of the City and giving us a really good presentation that gave us a lot of information that I had not seen or heard yet, and it gave us kind of a feel for how the process, how they got where they were going, and so I appreciated that. I also really appreciate the Parks Board and the work that they do. Those are all volunteers. They don't get paid for their time. They don't get kickbacks from contractors. They don't get anything. They're all on the Parks Board because they care about parks. Some care about them differently than others, but I honestly feel like they take care, they want what's best, what they think is best for the park, which not everyone's going to agree to. It just so happens that the two Parks Board members that came are both personal friends of mine. And I'll only say this, I had to laugh. They first said that they didn't appreciate City Council trying to tell them how to do their business, and it proceeded in the next sentence to tell us how to do our business. So I found a little irony in that, and I thought, well, okay, I know what you're thinking, I know what you're trying to say, so I didn't call them out on it that night. So someone asked about trails and pickleball, and how are they related? They're really not, but the fact is, when you have a package together where you're applying for a grant from some third source that's not our local tax dollars, and you're trying to get them to pick your trail plan over 10 or 15 other trail plans, and people find out that Evansville, in the midst of a project that's already been bid and bids have been accepted and opened, wants to change the rules in a process on who and how things are done. That's a really bad look. I just don't think it's a good idea for us to, in the middle of the game, in the middle of this process, and say, we, the City Council, decided that we now get authority to make these decisions. I'm not sure it would hold up a test in court, and our attorney believes it would, but I believe other attorneys would certainly be happy to take the other side of that and argue that. That's not the point. The point is that we have a process in place that works, that is driven by people who care about parks, and while you may not like what they've decided they think is the best thing to do, I don't think it's our responsibility or it's within our jurisdictions of something that we should do, that City Council has anointed itself as the final say on what the Parks Department does. That's a slap in the face to the mayor, to the park board, to anyone who works at the Parks Board or in the Parks Department, and I just don't think it's a good look for us. I know it's well-intentioned, and I know there's a lot of people that aren't happy about what the plans are, and I will say this, if plans move forward, if this ordinance gets turned down, and this goes forward, I will ask the Parks Department to hold retainage, a certain amount of retainage funds, and that's to be determined, and I'll figure that out between now and the next council meeting, to be held back to be used to deal with lights and sound issues. If we have to plant more bushes and plant more trees, I want to be sure that we have money committed to make those responses, because the people that live nearby, they're not anti-pickleball, and they probably, some of them actually play pickleball, but what they are, they want to have not be awakened at 10:30 at night with the lights on and nobody playing, or the lights on and the pickleball is really loud. I would also say, I think it's important that it would be a good point for the Parks Department to follow the noise ordinance that this body passed that says from Sunday night through Thursday night, it's at 10 o'clock, it's quiet time, and turn the lights off at 10 o'clock. Friday and Saturday night, you want to keep them on until 11, we're okay with that. But I think that following that gives you some coverage, is that that's what the rest of the community thinks about noise. So I think there are things that we could do to mitigate most of the concerns, and I just think that I will be voting against this ordinance that's presented tonight, not because it's not well-intentioned and not because it doesn't it's not the right thing to do, because honestly, I don't know, but I don't think it is, so I'll be voting against it. Thank you.
I do have,
Don't clap, please.
I do have one question. I guess it's probably for our city council attorney. Is there any way that we could actually have an appointment on the Parks Board? Because right now, the city council's not represented, and I feel like we should be, and I think our constituents feel that way too.
Yeah. Can we dissolve it and start over?
Well, those are two different questions. The first one, the makeup of the Parks Board is fairly unique for Evansville or Vanderbilt County. The 3 appointments by the mayor, 2 by the county commissioners. So that the short answer is that's outlined by state law. You guys won't be able to change that. Whether you want to dissolve the Parks Board is another question. And if you wanted to do that, you could. There's no requirement that you have a Parks Board. But if you do have a Parks Board, this state law outlines.
Is the Parks Board separate from the taxing district? I mean, the taxing entity that they have? Because they're like the school corporation. They get a percentage of all the taxes, revenue that's raised.
Councilman Beane, can you turn your microphone on, please?
I don't have my hearing aids in, so I thought I was playing loud.
Oh, you were loud. Just not loud enough
We're
for the
laughing at a
microphone.
pickleball meeting. I cannot believe it.
Yeah, the department is under the control of the board.
Okay.
I don't know if that helps or answers your question, but it does have its own.
Right.
Josh, it's my understanding, so the Alessia Cedar Lake case that you cited as authority for it, which ultimately not only just disbanded the Parks Board, but the Parks Department. So they made that decision, and I don't think it's mutually exclusive. Either you get rid of the jurisdiction, which subsequently gets rid of the Parks Board. Yeah, I don't think you can just get rid of the Parks Board and not get rid of the jurisdictions.
Just a question I had.
Yeah, I mean, theoretically you can. I mean, it does get a little messy because the existing district has outstanding bonds and debts and all. I mean, you would have to really think through sort of those implications, but as a theoretical matter, that's your choice whether to have one or not. But as I said, the makeup of the board is specific to counties with a population of more than 175,000 or less than 185,000 residents.
Thank you.
So-
Yeah, I just had a constituent ask that question, so I wanted to get it on the record.
Yeah, I know,
Or
like
text
the
me.
Affordable Housing Trust Fund, we don't have a member on there. There are boards that we don't have, and I wondered, but it never came to the, like this kind of situation where should we, or is that like overstepping our bounds? I would.
Might be something
like-
we want to look at later.
Absolutely, I think
Yeah.
so. I mean, because there's a lot of things, there's a lot of things that we're talking about, and Steve says, you know, things are going to come in under budget and all that, and that's great. But where are the savings? And, I mean, when we looked at that list, I was like, yeah, I'm really excited about these 4 things. And so I just, you know, we have a vested interest in if something starts getting cut out, you know, how do we find out about it? And so, but that's for another time.
I will say, we also don't have appointments, well, we have appointments to APC, right? So a similar appointment structure would probably need to be, because county council would have to have appointments there as well, and depending upon how many appointments we would have. But we also don't have appointments to the library as well, and yet we're going to be hearing from the library here pretty soon.
Councilwoman Koehler Lindsey?
Thank you, Councilman Mosby. You know, I first want to commend everyone that's out there in the audience. You know, elected folks and our department heads and all of you that have taken time to come out and be passionate about our community. I'm the new kid on the block, but I have the unique situation of having previous experience on this board. So I've spent 30 years in city and county government, Now, you have to remember, I was 2 years old when I started that. Okay, you know, we got to laugh or we'll cry. But I'm very excited to see the passion that folks have for our community and for doing what's best. And I think this council, you know, just in the 3 months that I've been here, I've seen that passion from all of you, and that, you know, we are all in our way trying to do what we think is best and doing the best we can with the information that we have. And we're not always going to agree. You know, that's the great thing that we have. We have free will and free choice, and here we are. So that being said, I am not in support of the ordinance in the form that it is now. It bothers me that we have this, you know, just little tiny square that we say that, okay, and I, you know, I'm like Councilman Beane, I understand the intent, but it just bothers me that we have this little tiny square in this one park that the ordinance is trying to address and say, well, we only want to have oversight on that area. So I think in some ways that this is a little bit maybe micromanagement on our part, and that the process is in place with the mayor, with the Parks Board. We've gone down this road, and I've had to do a lot of homework, and I've probably bothered every city official, and I think I've talked to every one of you guys, and just trying to get up to speed on this issue. And I'm like Zac, you know, I've read the emails and I've listened to the comments, and I appreciate all of that. But at this point, I'm in favor of letting the process proceed and kind of maybe holding our Parks Board members, you know, responsible. And, you know, they are responsible, and that it's our job to keep in touch with them. And on that note, Steve, would it be possible for you all to, I don't know, maybe we get the minutes, but would it be possible for you to come periodically to the council just to keep us apprised of the situation and of the things that are going on? I know we maybe get emails or whatever, but I think sometimes a face-to-face discourse maybe provides a little bit more information for the council. Would that be something that you could do? Can you come up and tell us that on the record, please?
Yes, absolutely. Always willing to report and provide updates as long as I'm in the position of interim parks director.
Thank you. Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. Anytime.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. You know, I just want us to keep the open dialogue and so that we know what's going on, because parks are important. I mean, you know, as a parent, as a grandparent, I hate to admit that I'm that old, but, you know, I'm here for life, and I, like all of you, we want to see our parks preserved. And there's a lot of good stuff in this bond that we're looking at. And so I want to see it done, and that my expectation and hope is that when we see the end result, that it is going to do all the great things that we think it's going to do. So I'm not going to be voting in favor of the ordinance tonight to allow the process to proceed, but I am going to request periodic updates from our Parks Department here personally on council floor. Thank you.
Any other council members? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Truckman?
Well, I'll just say, since I knew I'd be the first one to vote, I'm that sucker, always. Is that I didn't get to my microphone quick enough, but I share the same sentiments as Zac and Ron and Angela. I'm using their first names and I shouldn't. I think there's a lot of good for our future. I think there are concessions that can be made to make this okay. Most importantly, this has been a learning lesson in people, and all of you around, kudos to you for speaking up for what you believe in. And I hope that whether you agree or disagree, that you will continue to be involved. That said, I'll be voting no.
Councilwoman Mosby?
I took my oath to be the voice for my second ward, and I've gone to my neighborhood meetings and haven't had a single person at the neighborhood meetings say that they were in favor of this location. And shopping at the grocery store at Simpson's and all of that, I've had people coming up to me constantly saying, please, please don't put it there. So based on all of that, being the voice for my second ward and my constituents, I am in favor of this ordinance. I vote aye.
Councilman Burton?
No.
Councilwoman Koehler Lindsey?
No.
Councilman Brinkmeyer?
No.
Councilman Beane?
I forgot one thing. Thank you all for caring about your community and coming down here and talking to us. I appreciate that you all are passionate about what your interests were and what you wanted, and it's how we get better when people have open and dialogue that of different views. So thank you for doing that, and I vote no.
Councilwoman Moore?
I think of all the things that I have experienced on council these last 3.5 years, this is probably the most informed vote I've ever had. And I have you all to thank for it, all the passionate people here on both sides, and I'm incredibly impressed with our community. Ultimately, I think my job here is to work with the whole of Evansville and their voices, whether those are very, very vocal or very, very soft voices. And it's been hours and hours of consideration for me, and I really do agree with Councilman Heronemus here that to save Wesselman Park is to allow it to grow and change. And my vote is no.
Councilman Weaver?
This has never been about the opposition of pickleball. My parents introduced it to me back around 2010 in Destin, Florida. So it's not about that. It's about, as my neighbor, Miss Lawlan, said, maybe trying to find a better place for it. And I'm also worried about the future maintenance of it. So my vote is aye.
Councilman Heronemus?
No.
There being 2 ayes and 7 nays, ordinance G 2023-05 is declared denied.
Resolution docket. Resolution C 2023-05, a resolution of the Evansville City Council approving the Evansville Vanderburg Public Library's issuance of bonds.
That's me, right?
That's you.
Okay. Is there a motion to adopt Resolution C 2023-05?
So moved.
Second.
All right, having a first from Councilwoman Koehler Lindsey and a second from Councilman Burton. Floor is now open for discussion of this item among council. And Heather, will you be presenting? All right.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. We came last year before you and asked for a very similar bond, a $6 million general obligation bond that keeps our birth tax rate neutral, and this one will as well. This continues to move our
Hey,
facilities.
Heather.
Yes.
Hey, I'm sorry. Just hang tight real
Yeah.
quick. So I want to make sure that everybody can focus in on
Okay.
what you're presenting. All right.
All right.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. This general obligation bond will continue us moving forward with our facilities master plan as we kind of overviewed last year when we were here. In looking at our projects and what we have before us with our 8 locations, as well as our central annex, the next step for some of our larger projects take a little bit more time, a little bit more research, a little bit more planning. But in order to continue to move our facilities forward and to keep them maintained, we are bringing these 3 projects as a part of our next bond, which covers EVPL Central, EVPL North Park, and EVPL Oakland. And as mentioned, still birth tax rate neutral. Questions?
Any questions, comments from council? Do you want to just to state for the record, for those that may, what is the amount of the bond?
It's $6 million.
Okay. And that'll be spread across Central, North Park, and Oakland libraries?
Correct.
All right. Any other comments, questions from council regarding this? Any comments, questions from the public regarding this matter before council?
Well, I know that our last bond was in my side of town. What's the latest while we have you here?
Yeah, on McCullough. That's a great
Yes.
question. So we are actually in some interesting discussions about when we can bid for that entire package for the renovation project. We are hoping to bid in May or June, with a start date for construction being shortly after that in July. The process should take about a year because it is a major renovation of that entire location. In our Building and Grounds Committee discussions, we looked at different phasing options, and the option that we are hopeful for is to actually create a temporary location in the Washington Square Mall, and we are in talks right now with Han Kiefer and those people to be able to relocate so that we don't have closures and so that it's very safe. So when we looked at the phasing of the project, and if we spread it over, multiple phases, it would possibly create some closures, a lot of communication around where you could enter, where you could exit, where the construction and renovation crew could be. And so to ease everything, we are looking at that temporary location and are in talks with them to get a one-year lease of that space, which is a really, really nice space at Washington Square Mall, right across from where the coffee shop is. So we are really looking forward to that, and we're hopeful for that to begin, and like I said, construction this summer.
I was just going to ask if I'd be able to vote at McCullough like I usually do.
That is
So,
an interesting question, and we have learned a lot on how voting and the elections work. So if you cannot hold your early voting place in the exact same place for both the primaries and the general election, you cannot hold it in either one.
Okay.
And since we know we would not be able to provide that regardless of any phasing, it wouldn't be able to be in the exact same geographic location in the building. So we will not be early. There's no early voting at McCullough currently, but hopefully we can see that come back in the future. However, Central has more early voting this year. We have 4 weeks of early voting at EVPL Central, which is really great to be our downtown location.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Heather, McCullough is named after a woman, is that correct?
Ethel McCullough,
Yeah,
yes.
and the history of it, isn't it one of the few, or maybe one of the earliest that was named after a woman, is that correct?
That is true, and Ethel McCullough was quite a pioneer, actually, in library services, and what we like to remember her for is going door to door in a time where a lot of people didn't do that. She really went door to door to make sure that library services were open and accessible for everyone. So, yes, it's named after Ethel McCullough.
Any opportunity to kind of expand that name of McCullough Library to, help identify that historical context?
Possibly.
Okay.
We haven't-
Just some thoughts.
We can bring it in, yeah, we can bring it up
I
for
just
discussion,
learned
yeah.
it, not
Yeah.
long ago, and
Yeah.
McCullough is probably the closest one to my house,
Yeah.
so that was really
I'll
interesting.
bring it up to our design team.
There we go.
We meet every other Monday.
Perfect. Any other comments, questions from council?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to point out, you may have already said this, that just so folks understand that these bonds are repaid solely by the library,
Correct.
and the city doesn't have any obligation to repay them
Correct.
whatsoever.
Yes, I
So-
appreciate that comment.
And I'm excited to see that the North Park Library on Koehler Drive, that's my library of choice because of the location, is going to get some renovations. So pretty exciting
Well,
stuff.
if you have ideas, please let us know.
I certainly will.
And I will say this just for the record, if city council is interested in having appointments to the library board, we have to go through the General Assembly to get that accomplished. I brought the question up with a state representative as to kind of why is it that we have fiscal oversight, but we don't have appointments for that fiscal oversight? And that was the route that I was told we would need to go. And however, finding the appropriate contingent of folks to change those state laws that would affect our opportunity to have a, greater partnership, I wouldn't say influence, but partnership with the library system, that's where it would need to go. And I would say that if we want to consider that about the Parks Board, I would almost venture to bet that that's the route we have to go as well.
I will state, though, that at any time, even though you don't have an appointment to our board, we are always happy to come to speak to the full city council or to meet with any one of you. Please just reach out to us. We love to talk about the library. Pretty much everybody that works at the library loves to talk about the library. So please just reach out to us anytime, and we are more than happy to be transparent about what we're doing, where we're going, and the great services that we offer our entire community.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the public? Okay, hearing none. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Trachman?
Aye.
Councilwoman Mosby?
Aye.
Councilman Burton?
Aye.
Councilwoman Koehler Lindsey?
Aye.
Councilman Brickmeyer?
Aye.
Councilman Beane?
Aye.
Councilwoman Moore?
Aye.
Councilman Weaver?
Aye.
Councilman Heronemus?
Aye. There being 9 ayes and 0 nays, Resolution C 2023-05 is hereby declared adopted. All right.
Miscellaneous business.
The next meeting of the Common Council will be Monday, April 24th, 2023 at 5:30 PM. Are there any additional comments from members of council this evening?
I just want to say, I had a series of interesting encounters happening in my neighborhood, both of which were unfortunate, but I do want to say EPD handled the situation in both instances extremely well. I sent a text message to Chief Boland saying my gratitude, expressing that, but I wanted to do it publicly as well. You know, when weapons and firearms are on someone who's looking to use them in a violent way, and they're in front of your house, you never know what's going on, right? But they handled the situation incredibly well. And then yesterday, another situation happened, and EPD handled it incredibly well in front of my church. So.
Any other comments, questions from council? No? Okay, we'll move to comments from the members of the audience, and we've got 2 here. First up is Sandy. Sandy, you're going to have to pronounce your name. I should know it by now, really. Sandy J. I know you go. There we go.
Good evening, everyone. Sandy J. Seelan. I live in 4229 Shadwell Drive, Evansville.
Brian Woodward, 6409 Oak Street.
We are here yet again to ask the council to please ban the use of wild animals in circuses in Evansville. Honestly, we are tired of seeing elderly, enslaved elephants being dragged into Ford Center year after year in the name of entertainment. We truly appreciate the support that we have received from some members of the council for this cause, and we request that this cause be taken to the next step this year. We first approached the city council for this cause on August of 2021, along with many other locals who felt that abusing and exploiting wild animals is not an acceptable form of entertainment, no matter who does it. We have provided printed literature, emailed videos of elephant training cruelty and circus accidents, some fatal, USDA violations, and a list of 109 US cities and counties that already have a ban in place. We have also spoken with the Mesker Zoo director, Mr. Eric Beck, who is willing to educate on how inferior the standards for circuses are compared to AZA. We also attended the Animal Control Board meeting where one member, Ms. Kendall Paul, even admitted that she doesn't visit the circus for this very reason, that animals are hurt to train them to perform. There's 6 of us here in the room today, but many others that are not able to make it in person. But we really hope that 2023 is the year that we finally outlaw this animal cruelty. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up is Kearney Robinson, and just as a reminder, please state your name and your address for the record.
My name is Kearney Robinson, and I live at 2713 West Virginia Street in Evansville. I teach children with learning disabilities to read, and so I really care about children. That's what I've dedicated my life to. And I request that the city of Evansville ban exotic animal acts. We should not be opposed to safe circuses, as community events are a wonderful way to make money for charities bring people together, and make memories for children, but we must be against using wild animals at circuses. The risk of having wild animals at circuses is too great. It is not safe for children. I hope the city of Evansville draws a responsible line to protect family fun and bans wild animal acts within city limits. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other additional comments? Okay, we'll take you. I learned that one from Missy. Please state your name and your address.
I'm sorry I didn't put in one of the little orange cards. I got here late. Glenda Eddings, I've been here one other time before. Glenda Eddings, I live at 2008 East Michigan Street. I'm basically am here just to agree with my partners and animal rights friends who they've become about the ban just the wild animals in the circus. I would also like to really make one thing clear that a lot of animal rights activists do not make clear where the Shrine Circus is involved. We are not against the hospital. I mean, they do a wonderful service for children. That is not what we want. We just want the wild animals out. And even the clowns can stay, and I don't like them either, but, I mean, but what I would like to show you is, this is a card, and this is my American Legion card. I served in Grenada back in the 80s, and when I took the oath, I took an oath when I became an American soldier to protect against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And kind of like in a strange way, I've kind of incorporated that to protect everyone, elderly, young, old, and animals. And I guess that's all I want to say, but I'm really passionate about this. Like I said, this card can get me into the circus for free. I have 2 little grandbabies. One is 2 and one is 4. And they know that sometimes I come and speak here. And my oldest one, she's a firecracker. She's 4 years old. And she says, just tell them that I love animals too, Grandma. So I guess that's all I wanted to say, and I thank you for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your service.
Oh,
thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am. You're welcome.
All right. Committee reports. There will be a Finance Committee meeting on April 24th, 2023 at 4 p.m. in room 301 for Ordinance F 2023-04, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Evansville approving the annual Community Development Plan and appropriating Community Development Block Grant, Emergency Solutions Grant, and Home Investment Partnerships Program Grant Funds. Boy, that is a mouthful, isn't it? That being said, a lot of great organizations are going to be up for consideration. It's 4 o'clock, and if y'all are interested, please tune in or attend. And all that being said, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Heard from Councilwoman Mosby and from the girls. Oh, I just noticed that. Yeah, Councilwoman Moore. All those in favor say aye.
Rockabar.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. So ordered. Meeting adjourned at 7:30 p.m.